My guest today is Ingnacio Montoya, and he is the executive director of the Henry Labs. And welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Ignacio, what I usually start my guests is where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
Well, I went to a couple of universities. I went first to Georgia State University to study business, and then went to Georgia Tech, the Georgia Institute of Technology, to study aerospace engineering.
Wow. So now, how does one go from graduating to becoming the executive director?
Well, it was a journey, all right. So I was selected to be the F-16 pilot through the Air Force ROTC program at Georgia Tech. I was doing a dual degree program, and everything was going well before this motorcycle accident occurred. But what I really found was that biomedical engineering was the way to go in order to get my master's degree and continue my education. So that's the route that I decided to go to 4 years after the accident, and that's how I continued my education with a master's degree.
And so, when did you become the executive director of the Henry Labs?
So I really found that I had spent the first 4 years after my accident just doing tons of research, traveling all over the U.S., looking for solutions. Anytime I'd go into a doctor's office and would hear over and over again the word impossible or 0% chance of things coming true, or recovery being possible, it motivated me to dig a little deeper and to go to every conference, symposium, universities that had the leading breakthroughs with spinal cord injury research and things that more pertain to my daily living, my quality of life. Um, I figured my business degree and my aerospace engineering and being able to fly the F-16 with the United States Air Force, that wasn't going to help me with getting up from this wheelchair and bettering my quality of life. So I was the executive director of a paralysis recovery center for about 9 months to get some experience of what it would be like. But then I figured that I needed to reinforce the research, the experience with a degree. And that's where I got the master's degree of biomedical engineering from Georgia Tech. I just graduated 2 months ago.
Wow. Well,
Wow.
congratulations.
Thank you.
So you go into your accident, and on TV we can only see from your chest up. So could you give a detail, a little bit about what you went through, what actually happened, and why it got you to what you're doing today?
Um, so a little bit about what happened. Like I mentioned, I was well off in my career with the Air Force. Um, Everything was marching as planned. I'm very detail oriented, very uh, perfectionist type of mentality. Try to always have a to do list. And Everything was going well when I was giving a valedictorian address the day after my birthday. And I was 700 feet from being at my house on my motorcycle, which I rode every day. I owned two different motorcycles I'd been riding for years. I was in uniform coming from a ceremony, a military ceremony. So I had everything on point and 360-degree awareness, situational awareness about where I was and where I had to turn. And then someone runs a red light at 50 miles an hour. So as much as you try to be prepared and think you have many things in life under control, I was even certified by the Motorcycle Safety Foundation in Georgia through Harley Davidson, just to make sure that I was doing everything proper. Things like that happen, and it makes you reflect, and it tests your core, your character, your persona, who you are, especially when you wake up 3 months later from a coma and realize that you have a list of 20 different things that happened to you besides passing away at the scene for 15 minutes of going into cardiopulmonary arrest. So that's a little bit of what happened. But what I decided to do was I had two options, and something that I always reinforce and tell everyone in life we have many options. There's normally an A and a B, a door number one and a door number two. And door number one was basically, feel sorry for myself and there's a grieving part and there's a moment to do that, but to wake up and to put your clothes back on and keep looking for a way forward, whether it's, after a devastating injury or it could be you broke a fingernail. Everyone has their own severity. Um, but yeah, that's what I decided to do. And now that I have the education with a biomedical engineering degree, the experience, so I've been living with a spinal cord injury, a complete spinal cord injury, these last 6 years. It just was 6 years in December, along with having some work experience in this paralysis recovery center that I worked for about a year. It puts me in the perfect position to now be the executive director of Henry Labs. It's a neuro recovery facility that we have in Atlanta that is more of a laboratory. It's a 5-part laboratory that's focused on changing the standard of care for spinal cord injuries nationwide. So today, if you have a complete spinal cord injury, insurance doesn't cover it. There's no reimbursement because there's just not belief that recovery can be done.
Mm-hmm.
There's no functional gains that are thought of that are possible. And what we're doing is we have the breakthroughs and we're putting those to the test to change the standard of care and get people out of wheelchairs.
So, do you see at the Henry Labs? Do you see miracles on a daily and weekly basis? Do people actually get up from their wheelchair and actually walk?
Oh, absolutely. I recently what we've been doing is so spinal cord injury research. It's a multidisciplinary approach, and it combines everything from physical rehabilitation, locomotor training, along with electrical stimulation, and things such as stem cells. So what we're doing is accelerating these clinical trials that have happened already in the 5 leading institutions here in the U.S. And we want to get this to the bedside of a patient today, within the next 2 to 3 years. Not normally it takes about 15 years when a breakthrough in a clinical trial happens in order for it to become something that's done on the day to day in a hospital or in a paralysis recovery center. And that's what we're doing.
And so, what do you see in the future of this? Do you see things coming along with stem cell research and things of that sort?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. What's coming up in the future is, well, I've said I'm going to dedicate the next 10 years of my life to this neuro recovery center, to biomedical engineering. See, like I mentioned before this accident, before this degree and everything that I've done, I was always a fighter pilot, F-16 pilot, and I always had the military intelligence field in my mind, something that I would love to do, and what drove me and what works my brain sometimes. So I'm giving it my passion and all of me to spinal cord injury research because, like I said, it's what I'm living through. It's what I see on a daily basis and what I've been passionate about. So I'm going to do that for the next 10 years. And in these next 10 years, we're not only going to accelerate these breakthroughs with the help of the military, with the VAs and wounded veterans, but also with the civilian sector, so that in the next 10 years, there is no such thing as a complete spinal cord injury.
Wow.
Because right now it's differentiated between complete or incomplete. You're labeled an incomplete spinal cord injury if you have some sensation or some motor function below your injury level. If you have none, you're complete, and that's where the insurance distinction comes in. Um, but we want to eradicate that word from the vocabulary and from the mouths of doctors and professionals who unfortunately haven't had another option because functional results have not been proven. But that's what we're hoping to do.
Great. So before we have our next guest on, what advice do you want to give to the students and the families out there that want to get into a field like this? What advice do you want to give to them?
Oh gosh, I'd say the biggest advice, the most important with this field or whatever field they want to get into. It's something that I learned and I applied to this and to the Air Force. What I've seen in these last few degrees that I've gotten in school and things that I've done, I've seen that no matter what you do or what you want to study, if you have passion, it will come to fruition. For example, like I mentioned, my bachelor's degree was in business and in aerospace and with the military, and I loved flying and being a pilot with the United States Air Force. I had nothing to do with healthcare, no idea of biomedical engineering or what that meant. The word by itself intimidated me. I was like, biomedical engineering, that sounds difficult. But I just graduated #1 of my class, distinguished graduate of all 2018 from Georgia Tech this past December. And everyone else in my program, in my class, had a bachelor's in biomedical engineering. I had to learn everything from scratch. But I graduated #1 out of the whole university. And what I always tell people is passion is the #1 ingredient. Passion for what you want to do, regardless if you don't have a previous degree, regardless of what it is. If you have passion, things will come to fruition.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so stay tuned for our next guest. Welcome back. And my guest today is Steve Cesari. He is an entrepreneur and an author. And welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So, Steve, I start my guests where they went to college. What college did you go to?
I went to Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts.
Great.
And I was a tight end. I played football. And again, as I like to tell people, I was a strong C- student when I went to college. And again, learned more from the School of Hard Knocks than probably I did from academia. But it was a great experience and met a lot of really good people.
Great. So how does one go from graduating college to becoming an entrepreneur and an author?
Well, I knew from the moment I can remember that I grew up in a family in New York that I wanted to be in business for myself. My dad was a restaurateur, and then he owned a little retail grocery store. And after I graduated, I knew I was going to have to be an entrepreneur because I got fired from my first 3 jobs. So, I really didn't have a choice, but I couldn't work for somebody else, and I always felt like I could do it better. And got my start by opening up and working with a concept called Champ Sport Shop. It was a 42-store chain, one of the original mall sporting goods chains based out of Miami, Florida. And I got to come in and be the first non-family member as an owner partner. Came to Atlanta and opened up Champs at Lenox Square, and mortgaged my mother's house, mortgaged my father-in-law's house. Again, I didn't know what I didn't know back then, but made it work and sold the business a couple of years later. And again, through the different experiences I've had, I've learned probably more what not to do in business, and realized that life is pretty much a series of non-fatal mistakes, and if it doesn't kill you and you learn from it, it's not a mistake at all, but rather a part of the process of gaining wisdom. So I went on and was involved in several other businesses, and then my brother and I got involved in a business called Trillium Health Products. He asked me, he said, I need $50,000 will you loan it to me and to start this business? I said, well, no, I'm not going to loan it to you, but I'll write the check if we're partners. And long story short, we started Trillium Health Products in 1989, and we grew the business from 0 to 100 million in revenue in 3.5 years. And literally we're ranked in Fortune magazine as one of the fastest growing privately held companies in the U.S. And then I always like to joke the following year in 1993, we were ranked by Mad Magazine as one of the fastest shrinking companies in the United States, and learned more coming down the ladder of success than I did going up the ladder, and really realized that, the most important things in life are the things that money can't buy: your faith, your family, and your friends. So used that experience, and we went on and used that marketing to market a lot of other major brands. And I really think for me, the key was knowing from the get-go that I wanted to be in business for myself. The thing that prompted me to get into the Trillium Health Products with my brother, my dad passed away when I was in 8th grade. I was one of 8 kids, and literally I just always remembered that feeling and didn't want anybody to feel that again. And so our mission when we started Trillium Health Products was to educate people about good health and proper nutrition, and then provide them with quality products and programs to live the healthiest lifestyle possible. And again, the way I would communicate that to the folks that are listening to this is, what you want to do is not nearly as important as why you want to do it. And what I've found with most of the successful people I've worked with in my own successes is that if your why isn't big enough, your what doesn't matter. And basically that means, Simon Sinek says, start with why. When you have a compelling reason why you must succeed, whether it's being an entrepreneur, whether it's being an athlete or a student, you have a much, much better opportunity and higher percentage of getting something done. Because it's not if you run into obstacles and challenges, that happens almost automatically in life, in business, and whatever endeavors you choose to do. So, again, I've overcome a lot of obstacles. After my dad passed away, I had a brother that passed away. And then several years later, I had a brother that was captain of the baseball team at West Point. And 2 weeks before he graduated, he passed away. Wow. So, I had a lot of anger and frustration. And what you come to learn is when you meet people and really kind of dig below the surface, everybody has a story. Everybody has issues. And the way I describe it in my book that I wrote called Clarity is in some way, shape, or form, we're all adult children of dysfunctional families. And it's like, what are you going to do with it? You're going to use it to be bitter, or you're going to use it to get better. And again, I chose to try to use it as a springboard and take what I've learned through my successes and my failures and share them with as many people as I can so they can come through the learning curve faster than I did. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And before the show, you were saying you also promoted things like the George Foreman Grill.
Yeah, my brother had the marketing company out in Seattle, and again, learning what we did together at the Juice Man, went on and used the same type of marketing for the George Foreman Grill, the Sonic Care toothbrush, the GoPro camera, the Momentous Swing Trainer. Again, great products that were disrupting their categories, but it was the same principles that applied for success. I have a little formula that I use that, based on all the things I've ever worked on. Clarity equals success, and 6 steps. Number 1, you have to have a clear vision of what it is you're trying to do. Number 2, there needs to be discipline to go along with it. Number 3, there needs to be a human skill set. Number 4 is human resources. You need to have the human capital around you, the people with experience to make that happen. Then you have to have incentives to motivate the people around you. And then finally, there needs to be a plan of action. And if any of those things are missing from that formula, there might be some success, but the most successful businesses I've ever worked with or developed myself have had all 6 of those working for them at the same time. So, again, to me, that's what I think is the secret to success. Some people will learn their skills through academia. I learned mine more through the benefit of going out there. I'm a ready, fire, aim type of guy. I'll try it, learn from it, and then ask myself 3 questions: what worked, what didn't work, and then thirdly, what would I do differently next time to make it a better outcome? And again, to me, I just want to repeat this because it's so important. A mistake is not a mistake unless you keep repeating it. But a mistake, when you learn from it, is just part of the process of gaining wisdom. And again, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not gaining wisdom in the process of whatever it is you're choosing to pursue in life.
So now, do you continue to write books? Do you continue to open up new businesses?
I am involved with a group called Henry right now, High Impact Network of Responsible Innovators. And I'm real big on pouring my time, effort, and energy into for-profit businesses and helping them to make money and then build a bridge into the nonprofits that Henry supports that are making a difference in the world. And specifically through the Warrior Alliance, which supports vets, and through anti-human trafficking organizations. And again, I've always been a big believer of why do not-for-profits always have to rely on donations versus taking money from for-profits and channeling it back in there. So I'll be 65 in May. My wife and I have a pact. We refuse to let old people move into our bodies. So we work at it real hard. And, as long as I've got the energy and the wisdom, I'm going to look at identifying those business opportunities that we can help bring our resources to and help them grow and nurture them and then monetize these nonprofits through Henry. So that's my life's mission at this point.
So have you found some organizations to help already?
We have several organizations. We're working with a fellow named Rich Mahy and his contacts and networks. That's why we're sitting here. I believe this is one of Rich's programs that he uses to give back to the kids. And again, that to me is what life is all about, figuring out what you do best so that you can utilize it and leverage it and give it back to other people and not give them a handout per se, but give them a hand up. There are always going to be people that need a handout, but the more people that we can teach and learn and bring with us. And look, if a strong C- student like me can do it and make it happen, I can teach other people how to make that happen. And anybody who's listening to this, regardless of what background they came from or what their family life is like, can overcome whatever challenges they might have and utilize their God-given gifts and talents to go out there and be the best and achieve the best at home, at work, and in the community. And again, I try to take the people I work with and identify them. Again, there's two types of people that I've identified in life, givers and takers. And I really try to work with givers so that when I pour into them, they're going to pour back into other people and just have a ripple effect that works on a personal and professional level. And that's why I wrote my book, Clarity, also, was to leave a legacy for my kids and family and show other people, hey, I can do it. Let me show you how to do it as well. Because for a good portion of my life, I did not have that clarity and really know what I wanted to be when I grow up. And I work with guys that are in their 60s and 70s, as well as millennials in their late 20s and 30s, trying to figure out how they can be the best and what they're put here on earth to specifically do. And that's what really gets my juices flowing, is when you see those people get it and understand it. Whether it's serving in a church or whether it's being an entrepreneur, or whether it's being the best you can be in a company, it's just helping them really find what that is in their specific area of endeavor.
So we're coming to the end of our show, and usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the students and the families that are watching the show, that want to become entrepreneurs, want to become an author? What advice do you want to give to those students?
Well, number one, nothing happens till we get it out of our head and write it down on paper. So write it down, make it happen. The average person has 64,000 thoughts a day. And for guys, it's even worse because most of those thoughts are about the same thing. So if we can get it out of our heads and get it down on paper, I would, again, encourage them, write it down on a piece of paper. Because number one, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it always seems to be magnified when it's floating around in our head. And then once we get it separated from those 64,000 thoughts and get it down on paper, then the next thing is, what is the next step or action? Who can you call to ask? And what I always like to do is say, find somebody who's already doing what you think you want to do and ask them if you can pick their brain, ask them if you can follow them around, ask them what advice they would give them on how they can go down a path so that they can potentially end up doing whatever they think they want to do. And again, there are no mistakes. I think you learn. I think everything we experience in life prepares us for what comes next. So especially for young kids, try something. Again, I love the ready, fire, aim. You don't have to know exactly what that end game looks like, but try something, get feedback. Sometimes we need to go down the wrong road before we get on the right road. So, and don't ever let anybody tell you can't do it, because you can if you have the passion and the chutzpah and the desire to get up there and do it. So just do it and make it happen.
Great. Well, thank you, Steve, for coming on the show. I appreciate it.